The coffee shop smelled like burnt beans and broken dreams. I sat across from Mom, stirring my cheap latte while she scrolled through her phone. My younger sister Jessica's latest post glowed on the screen. Another promotion at the law firm, another designer suit, another reason for Mom to beam with pride. Jessica made partner track, Mom said without looking up. 26 and already climbing. Meanwhile, you're what? Taking pictures for Instagram. I forced a smile. It's called content creation, Mom. And yes, I'm a photographer. She finally looked at me, her eyes sharp with disappointment. Maya, you're 28. When are you going to get a real job? Stop wasting your life on this hobby nonsense. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another message from my agent. I ignored it, focusing on Mom's familiar lecture about stability and respectability. She had no idea what was coming. No idea that in 3 weeks, everything would change. But I wasn't ready to tell her yet. Not when she looked at me like I was her biggest failure. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment in downtown Portland, editing photos on my laptop. The space was barely big enough for my bed and equipment, but it was mine. Every camera, every lens, every light. I'd bought them with money from odd jobs and small gigs Mom called playing around. My phone lit up again. Marcus, my agent, wasn't giving up. I finally answered. Maya, the campaign launches in 3 weeks, he said, his voice excited. Global Tech wants you front and center. This is huge. I leaned back, staring at my cracked ceiling. I know. You're nervous about telling your family, he finished. Look, they're going to find out anyway. Might as well enjoy the ride. After we hung up, I pulled out the contract I'd signed 2 months ago. Global Tech's new campaign needed a face that represented modern creativity. Somehow, they'd chosen me, the failed daughter who couldn't get a real job. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sunday dinner at Mom's house was a tradition I couldn't escape. Jessica sat beside her fiancé Derek, showing off her engagement ring for the 100th time. My older brother Tom talked about his architect firm's latest project. I pushed mashed potatoes around my plate, invisible as always. Maya still hasn't found real work, Mom announced to everyone, as if I wasn't sitting right there. 28 and taking pictures for people's social media. Jessica glanced at me with pity. Have you thought about going back to school? Maybe get a business degree? I bit my tongue. They had no idea I'd been offered a full scholarship to art school 5 years ago. Mom had talked me out of it, saying photography wasn't practical. I'd listened then, tried the corporate route, hated every second, and finally quit to pursue my passion anyway. I'm doing fine, I said quietly. Tom snorted. Fine? Living in that shoebox apartment? Maya, you're wasting your potential. You could be somebody. Little did they know, I already was. The next morning, I met Marcus at a cafe near Pioneer Square. He slid a folder across the table, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Final mock-ups, he said. The billboards go up in 2 weeks. Downtown, highway exits, bus stops, you're going to be everywhere. I opened the folder. My face stared back at me, larger than life. The tagline read, Create without limits, Global Tech. My photography equipment surrounded me in the shot, my expression confident and focused. I looked nothing like the quiet, disappointing daughter my family knew. 20 major locations across Portland, Marcus continued. Plus digital ads, social media, the whole package. Global Techers pouring millions into this campaign. You're their star, Maya. My hands trembled slightly. This was real. This was happening. In 2 weeks, my mother would drive past a 50-foot version of my face and realize she'd been wrong about everything. There's more, Marcus added. They want you to speak at their tech conference next month. 20,000 attendees. I could barely breathe. I spent the next week preparing for the reveal while dodging family calls. Mom left voicemails asking if I'd applied to any real companies yet. Jessica texted about job openings at her firm. Tom sent links to career counseling services. Each message felt like a tiny knife, but I kept quiet. Let them think I was lost. Let them believe I'd wasted my life. The truth would hit harder that way. My phone rang. Mom's name flashed on screen. I almost didn't answer. "Maya, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "Your father and I are worried. You can't keep living like this. We're cutting off the emergency fund." I'd never used their emergency fund, but facts didn't matter when you were the family disappointment. "That's fine, Mom," I replied calmly. "I don't need it." She sighed, long and dramatic. "That's what you think now. Wait until reality hits. You're just wasting your life on fantasies." I stared at the campaign poster on my wall. 10 days until reality hit her instead. The weekend before launch, I walked through downtown Portland, watching the construction crews prepare the billboard spaces. They were covering up old advertisements, getting ready for Global Tech's massive campaign. Getting ready for my face. I stopped at the corner of Morrison and 4th, right across from Mom's favorite boutique. She shopped there every Saturday morning, then grabbed coffee at the cafe next door. In a week, she'd do her usual routine and see me towering above her, 40 feet tall. My stomach flipped with nervous excitement. A text from Marcus, "Final approvals done. Launch confirmed for next Tuesday morning. Get ready for your life to change." I typed back, "Already changed. Just waiting for everyone else to notice." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Mom's face when she saw the billboard. Would she be proud? Shocked? Angry that I'd kept it secret? Maybe all three. Tuesday morning arrived with grey Portland rain. I woke up at dawn, knowing the billboards were going live today. Crews had worked through the night, and by 6 a.m., 20 locations across the city would display my face. I made coffee, hands shaking slightly. My phone stayed silent. Nobody knew yet. The campaign wouldn't officially announce until 9 a.m., but the billboards were already up, waiting for people to notice. At 7:30, my phone exploded. Messages flooded in from old college friends, former co-workers, even my high school art teacher. "Is that you on the billboard? OMG Maya. You're everywhere." I watched the messages pile up, waiting for the one that mattered. Waiting for Mom. At 8:15, Jessica called. Her voice sounded strange, caught between confusion and something else. "Maya? I just drove past 4th and Morrison. That billboard. That's you, isn't it?" I smiled. "Yeah, that's me." Silence. Then, "Mom doesn't know, does she?" "Not yet." Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. "Maya, she's at that cafe right now. The one on 4th. She just posted a photo of her latte." My heart pounded. "She's there right now?" "Yes. And unless she's blind, she's about to see." A beep interrupted. Mom calling. I switched lines. "Maya Elizabeth Rodriguez." Her voice shook. "What is going on?" "I'm standing on 4th Street, and there's a billboard with your face on it. A giant billboard. People are taking pictures." I took a deep breath. "That's the Global Tech campaign, Mom. I'm their spokesperson." The silence stretched so long I thought the call dropped. "Spokesperson?" She finally whispered. "For Global Tech. The tech company." "The same one," I confirmed. "They hired me 2 months ago. The campaign launches officially today." I heard her breathing, fast and shallow. 2 months? You've known for 2 months and didn't tell us. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Another long pause. Then she hung up. Within an hour, my phone became useless. Calls, texts, messages flooded every platform. Friends from elementary school crawled out of nowhere. Distant relatives suddenly remembered I existed. Local news stations wanted interviews. Marcus called, laughing. "You're trending on Twitter." Portland's talking about nothing else. The campaigns already exceeded projected engagement by 300%. But the only call I cared about never came. Mom stayed silent. Tom texted, "Dude, you're on the billboard by my office. Everyone's freaking out. Why didn't you tell us?" Jessica sent a longer message. "Mom's really shaken up. She locked herself in her room. Dad's confused. Maya, what's happening? I stared at my phone. This was supposed to feel victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. At 2 p.m., Marcus called again. Global Tech wants you at their headquarters tomorrow. Press conference. National media will be there. You ready? Was I? I'd wanted to prove my family wrong, but now that it was happening, the victory tasted bitter. That evening, I drove to Mom's house. Her car was in the driveway. So was Jessica's. And Tom's. They were all there, probably discussing their embarrassing sister who'd somehow ended up on billboards across the city. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, building courage. Finally, I walked to the door and knocked. Dad answered. His expression was unreadable. Maya, he said simply. Come in. The living room felt like a courtroom. Mom sat on the couch, her face red and blotchy. Jessica and Tom flanked her like lawyers. Derek had wisely stayed home. Sit, Mom said, pointing to the chair across from her. I sat. Explain, she demanded. Explain how my daughter, who I thought was barely surviving on photography gigs, ended up on every billboard in Portland. I met her eyes. Because I'm not barely surviving, Mom. I haven't been for 2 years. The room went silent. I've been building my career, I continued. Real clients. Real money. Real success. You just never asked. Mom's face crumpled. Never asked? Maya, I've been asking for years what you're doing with your life. No, I corrected gently. You've been telling me what I should do. You never once asked what I was actually doing. Tom leaned forward. So what have you been doing, besides keeping secrets from your family? I pulled out my phone and showed them my portfolio. Major brands. Celebrity clients. Magazine covers. Work I'd done over the past 3 years while they assumed I was struggling. I didn't tell you because every time I tried, you shut me down, I said. Remember when I mentioned landing a campaign for Nike? Mom, you said it was probably just local store promotion, nothing impressive. Mom's eyes widened. That was Nike? You said it was just some athletic brand. Because you never let me finish, I replied. I stopped sharing because nothing I did was ever good enough unless it fit your definition of success. Jessica looked uncomfortable. Dad stayed quiet, processing everything. The Global Tech campaign pays more than Tom makes in a year, I said quietly. My annual income from photography is over $200,000. I own my studio apartment outright. No debt. No emergency fund needed. Tom's jaw dropped. Jessica blinked rapidly. Dad's eyebrows shot up. Mom just stared at me like I was a stranger. 200,000, she whispered. Dollars. I nodded. This year it'll probably hit 300 with the Global Tech deal. They're also offering me a full-time creative director position, but I'm keeping my independence. The silence felt heavy. Years of disappointment and lectures hung in the air between us, suddenly meaningless. Why didn't you tell us? Dad finally asked, his voice soft. Why let us think you were struggling? Because somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to make you proud, I admitted. I just focused on making myself proud. And honestly, it felt better. Mom's face crumpled further. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and I felt my anger soften. I never meant to hurt you, Mom said, her voice breaking. I just wanted you to be secure. Safe. Photography seemed so unstable. It was unstable, I agreed. The first year was brutal. I ate ramen for months. Slept on an air mattress. But I was building something real, Mom. I just needed you to believe in me instead of constantly pushing me toward your version of safe. Jessica touched Mom's shoulder. She's right. We all assumed Maya was failing because she wasn't doing what we expected. We never actually looked at what she was accomplishing. Tom rubbed his face. I'm an idiot. I literally sent you career counseling links last week. Despite everything, I smiled. Yeah, that was pretty bad timing. Dad stood up and crossed to me. He pulled me into a tight hug, something he hadn't done in years. I'm proud of you, he whispered. I should have said it sooner. Tears stung my eyes. I'd wanted to hear those words for so long. Mom finally stood, walking toward me slowly. Her makeup was smeared, her usual perfect composure shattered. She reached out, touching my cheek like I might disappear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Maya. I was so busy worrying about your future that I couldn't see your present. We hugged, and years of tension melted between us. She smelled like her favorite perfume, familiar and comforting despite everything. I saw your face on that billboard, she continued, pulling back to look at me. And I realized I didn't even recognize my own daughter anymore. Not because you changed, but because I never really saw you. Jessica joined us, then Tom, then Dad. We stood in an awkward family huddle, years of misunderstanding finally cracking open. The press conference is tomorrow, I said softly. Global Tech's headquarters. National media. It's going to be big. Mom wiped her eyes. We'll be there. Front row. If you want us. I nodded. I want you there. All of you. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow would change everything publicly. The press conference would make this official, national. My phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, brand deals, speaking opportunities. Marcus called at midnight. Can't sleep either, huh? Too much happening, I admitted. 6 months ago, I was shooting birthday parties for extra cash. Now I'm speaking to national media. He laughed. You earned this, Maya. Every single bit. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. After we hung up, I looked through old photos on my laptop. Pictures of me at 23, fresh out of college, clutching my first real camera. So young, so hopeful, so terrified I'd chosen wrong. 5 years of doubt, struggle, and constant criticism from the people who should have supported me most. 5 years of proving myself to everyone except the ones I wanted to impress. But I'd made it anyway, despite them. Maybe even because of them. Tomorrow, the world would see what I'd built from nothing. The Global Tech headquarters gleamed with glass and steel. I arrived at 8 a.m., 2 hours before the press conference. Marcus met me at the entrance, grinning. Your family's already here, he said. They're in the waiting area, looking nervous. I found them huddled together. Mom had dressed like she was meeting the president. Jessica wore her power suit. Tom kept adjusting his tie. Dad looked proud but overwhelmed. You came early, I said, surprised. Mom stood, smoothing her dress. We weren't going to miss a second of this. Maya, I've been up all night reading about your work. I had no idea. All those campaigns, those awards, those magazine features. Why didn't you show us? I tried, I reminded her gently. You weren't ready to see. She nodded, tears threatening again. But I'm ready now. I'm so ready to see everything. A Global Tech representative approached. Ms. Rodriguez, we're ready for you in the green room. I squeezed Mom's hand. Watch me shine. The press conference room held over 100 journalists, cameras, and industry professionals. I sat at a table beside Global Tech's CEO, a mic in front of me, lights blazing overhead. My family sat in the front row, Mom's hands clasped tightly in her lap. The CEO introduced me, talking about my innovative approach to visual storytelling, my unique perspective, my rapid rise in commercial photography. Words that sounded foreign applied to me, yet absolutely true. Then it was my turn to speak. 5 years ago, I was told I was wasting my life. I began, my voice steady. That photography wasn't a real career. That I needed to find something stable and respectable. I almost believed it. I looked directly at Mom. She was crying silently. But I kept shooting, kept learning, kept pushing. Because I knew in my gut that this was my path, even when everyone else said I was wrong. Cameras flashed. Journalists scribbled notes. My family leaned forward, hanging on every word. This campaign represents more than just a job, I continued. It represents every person who's been told their passion isn't practical. Every creative who's been pushed towards safe choices instead of their dreams. Every kid who wants to create but is told to get a real job. The room erupted in applause. I caught Tom wiping his eyes, Jessica beaming with pride, Dad nodding emphatically. The CEO leaned toward his mic. Maya embodies everything global tech stands for: innovation, courage, and the refusal to accept limitations. We're honored she chose to partner with us. Questions flew from journalists. How did I build my career? What advice did I have for young creatives? What's next for me? I answered them all, my confidence growing with each response. This was my moment. Not just to prove my family wrong, but to inspire others facing the same doubts I'd conquered. Your mother looks incredibly proud, one journalist noted, pointing at Mom in the front row. I smiled. She is now. That's what matters. After the conference, interviews continued for hours. Local news, national outlets, online publications. Everyone wanted the story of the Billboard girl who proved her family wrong. By 3 p.m., I was exhausted. Marcus finally rescued me, ushering me to a quiet office where my family waited. You were amazing, Jessica said immediately, hugging me tight. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Tom nodded. Seriously. I feel like an idiot for all those times I lectured you about wasting your potential. You were building something incredible while I was being a judgmental jerk. Mom approached slowly. Can we talk? Just us. I followed her to a private corner. She took my hands, her grip trembling. I see you now, she said. Really see you. And I'm ashamed it took a billboard to open my eyes. Mom. No, let me finish, she interrupted. I was scared. Scared you'd struggle like I did when I tried to be an artist. I pushed so hard for security because I didn't want you to feel the pain I felt when I gave up my dreams. Mom's confession hung between us. You wanted to be an artist? She nodded, tears flowing freely now. A painter. But my parents pushed me toward teaching, said art was a hobby. I listened, and I've regretted it my whole life. When you chose photography, I panicked. I didn't want you to fail like I thought I had. Understanding washed over me. So you pushed me away from it. I thought I was protecting you, she whispered. But I was really just projecting my own fears and failures. You were brave enough to do what I couldn't. And instead of celebrating that, I tried to stop you. I pulled her into a hug. You didn't stop me, Mom. You made it harder, but you didn't stop me. She sobbed against my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, I said, meaning it. And it's not too late. You could still paint. She pulled back, eyes wide. What? You're 52, not dead. Pick up a brush again. The next few weeks blurred together. The global tech campaign exploded beyond anyone's expectations. My face appeared on billboards in 12 major cities. Social media went crazy. Brand deals flooded in. More than I could possibly accept. But the best part was watching Mom rediscover her passion. She set up a small studio in their garage and started painting again. Her first piece was a portrait of me, taken from my billboard photo but rendered in vibrant colors that showed emotion the camera couldn't capture. It's for you, she said, showing me the finished piece. To remember that you did what I couldn't. And that you taught me it's never too late. I hung it in my apartment, right above my desk. Every time I looked at it, I remembered the journey. The struggle. The doubt. The victory. Jessica invited me to her firm's charity gala. As my accomplished sister, she said, no trace of condescension in her voice. I want to show you off. Tom asked me to speak to his architecture students about creative careers. They need to hear from someone who made it work. 6 months after the Billboard launch, I sat in my expanded studio. No longer a tiny apartment but a real workspace in Portland's Pearl District. My team of 3 assistants organized equipment while I reviewed upcoming shoots. Global Tech had offered me that creative director position again. This time, I was seriously considering it. Not because I needed the security, but because I wanted the challenge. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. Maya, I just got accepted into a gallery show. Her voice bubbled with excitement. They want to feature my work next month. Can you believe it? I grinned. I absolutely believe it. I'll be there, front row. And I was thinking, she continued, maybe you could photograph the opening? Professional rates, of course. I want to hire my daughter, the famous photographer. Tears stung my eyes. I'd be honored, Mom. After hanging up, I looked around my studio. My success. My team. My terms. Everything I'd built while they doubted. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just grateful I'd kept going. The gallery opening was beautiful. Mom's paintings lined white walls, each piece vibrant with the passion she'd buried for decades. Collectors admired her work, asked about her process, requested commission pieces. I photographed every moment, capturing her joy, her nervousness, her pride. Dad stood beside her, beaming like he'd won the lottery. Jessica and Tom mingled with the crowd, talking up their mother's incredible talent. This is because of you, Mom said during a quiet moment. You showed me it was possible. I shook my head. No, Mom. You did this. I just reminded you that you could. A collector approached, interested in purchasing 3 pieces. Mom's hands shook as she discussed pricing, her voice uncertain. Mom, I whispered, pulling her aside. Don't undervalue your work. These pieces are worth triple what you're asking. She blinked. Really? Really? Trust your talent. Price accordingly. She returned to the collector with new confidence, negotiating professionally. I watched, proud beyond words. My mother was an artist again. 1 year after the Billboard launch, I stood in the same coffee shop where Mom had told me I was wasting my life. We'd agreed to meet here, a full circle moment we both needed. She arrived looking different, paint-stained jeans, comfortable sweater, silver hair pulled back messily. No longer the perfectly composed woman who valued appearances over authenticity. I sold 6 paintings this month, she announced, sliding into her seat. And I have a waiting list for commissions. I raised my coffee cup. To new beginnings. She clinked hers against mine. To daughters who are brave enough to prove their mothers wrong. We laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for not giving up. On your dreams or on me. I almost did, I admitted. There were so many times I wanted to quit photography just to make you happy. I'm glad you didn't, she replied. Because you taught me that happiness comes from pursuing what matters to you, not what others expect. As we left the coffee shop, I noticed a new billboard going up across the street. Another campaign, another company, another face. The world kept turning, kept creating, kept pushing forward. My billboard had come down months ago, replaced by the next big thing. But the impact remained. Messages still flooded my inbox from young creatives inspired by my story. Speaking invitations came weekly. My photography business thrived beyond my wildest dreams. But standing there with Mom, watching her eyes light up as she described her next painting series, I realized something important. The billboard was never the real victory. The real victory was this moment. My mother believing in me. My family finally seeing me. And most importantly, me knowing my worth regardless of whether they ever came around. Same time next week? Mom asked, hugging me goodbye. Same time next week, I confirmed. She walked to her car, and I watched her go. The daughter who wasted her life had become the woman who built something beautiful. And she'd brought her mother along for the journey. That was better than any billboard could ever be.